I remember the sound, not the explosions, but the engine. That high-pitched scream of a Zero diving at full throttle. You never forget that sound. It meant a man had already decided to die, and he wanted to take you with him. March 19th, 1945, 50 miles off the coast of Japan. That was the day I learned what hell really looked like. My name is George Anderson. I'm 101 years old now, and I served as a gunner aboard the USS Franklin during World War II. What I'm about to tell you, I don't talk about this much. My memory, it's not what it used to be. I forget where I put my keys. I forget what I had for breakfast. But that day, March 19th, 1945, that day is as clear as if it happened yesterday. The boys who didn't make it home, they deserve to be remembered, and I'm one of the last ones left who was there. So let me take you back to when I was just a 17-year-old kid from Iowa who lied about his age to get into this war. I grew up in a little town called Waterloo, Iowa. Population maybe 50,000 if you counted the cows. My dad ran a hardware store on Main Street. Mom taught at the elementary school. I had a girl, too, Sarah Mitchell, prettiest girl in 3 counties, and somehow she'd agreed to wait for me. We were sweethearts. I was going to marry her when I got back, or at least that's what I told myself. I was 17 years old when I walked into that recruiting office, January 1942, just a month after Pearl Harbor. The recruiter looked at me and said, "How old are you, son?" I looked him dead in the eye and said, 18, sir.
Yeah.
I wasn't. I was 17. Wouldn't turn 18 until August. But back then they didn't check too hard. They needed bodies. And I wanted to do my part. My mother cried when I told her. She knew I'd lied about my age, but what could she do? Sarah cried too. But she gave me a photograph. Her in a Sunday dress, smiling outside the church. I kept that photo in my pocket every single day. I didn't know anything about ships. Hell, I'd never even seen the ocean before boot camp. But the Navy, they looked at my file, saw I'd been shooting rabbits and squirrels since I was 8 years old, and said, "Anderson, you're gonna be a gunner." By the time I turned 18, I was already standing on the deck of the USS Franklin, an Essex-class aircraft carrier, over 2,600 men aboard. We called her Big Ben. She was our home, the Pacific Theater. It wasn't like the movies make it look. It was hot, brutally hot. The metal deck would get so scorching you couldn't touch it with your bare hands. Salt air, diesel fumes, and sweat. That's what the Franklin smelled like. My station was a 40mm Bofors gun on the port side. Me and my crew, there was Jimmy Rodriguez from Texas, a kid named Tommy Wheeler from Boston, and our loader, Marcus Doc Washington from Alabama. We were gun crew number 7. We trained every single day. Load, aim, fire. Load, aim, fire. You had to be fast, because out there in 1945, the Japanese had something new, something that scared every sailor in the Pacific Fleet. Kamikazes, pilots who would load their planes with explosives and dive them straight into our ships. Suicide attacks. We'd heard the stories from other carriers, the USS Bunker Hill, the USS Intrepid, ships that had been hit, hundreds of men killed in seconds. Every morning we'd scan the sky. Every afternoon we'd hear rumors. They're coming. Intel says there's a squadron nearby. You tried not to think about it. You played cards, you wrote letters home, you laughed at stupid jokes. But deep down, We all knew it was just a matter of time. March 18th, the day before. We'd been launching airstrikes against the Japanese mainland. Our planes would take off at dawn, bomb their airfields, their factories, and come back by dusk. It was dangerous work. We were so close to Japan, closer than any carrier had ever been, we could practically see the coastline. That made us a prime target. That night, I wrote a letter to Sarah. I still remember what I wrote. My dearest Sarah, we're doing important work out here. The boys are in good spirits. I think about you every day, about our wedding, about the life we're going to build. I can almost taste your apple pie. I promise I'll be careful. I promise I'll come home to you. All my love, George. All my love, George. I never got to send that letter. That night, Doc couldn't sleep. He kept pacing on the deck. I asked him what was wrong, and he just looked at me and said, "George, I got a bad feeling. Something's coming." I told him he was being paranoid. Told him to get some rest. Doc was right. March 19th, 1945, 7 a.m. The morning started normal. Reveille at 0600, breakfast, powdered eggs and coffee that tasted like motor oil. The usual complaints, the usual routines. By 7 a.m., we were at our stations. The Franklin was launching planes for another strike. The flight deck was chaos, planes revving up, crew running around, fuel lines everywhere. I remember thinking it looked like a coordinated dance. The sky was overcast, gray clouds. Visibility wasn't great, but it was good enough to fly. I was at my gun, doing a routine check. Jimmy was polishing the barrel. He was superstitious like that, thought a clean gun shot straighter. Tommy was smoking a cigarette he wasn't supposed to have. Doc was quiet, staring at the horizon. At 7:07 a.m., our radar picked up something. At 7:08, the loudspeaker crackled to life. "General quarters! General quarters! All hands, man your battle stations! This is not a drill. Incoming aircraft. Bearing..." The alarm. That damn alarm. A sound that still wakes me up at night. Everything happened so fast, I looked up, and there they were. 2 Japanese planes, Zeros, coming out of the cloud cover, low, maybe 500 feet. They'd snuck under our radar. "Kamikazes!" someone screamed. My hands moved on instinct, swiveled the gun, tracked the target. Jimmy was already loading. Tommy was on the other side, feeding ammunition. The first plane was heading straight for the island, the superstructure where the bridge was. I could see the pilot. I swear to God, I could see his face through the canopy. "Fire! Fire! Fire!" The Bofors started hammering. Boom, 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 boom. Every ship around us opened up. The sky filled with tracer rounds, red and white lines cutting through the gray. The plane kept coming. 500 yards, 400 yards, 300 yards. I was screaming at Jimmy to load faster. The gun was red hot. Shells were ejecting everywhere, clanging on the deck. 200 yards. And then I saw it. Smoke, black smoke trailing from the Zero's engine. Someone had hit him. Maybe me, maybe another gun. Doesn't matter. But he didn't pull up. He didn't pull up. The plane slammed into the flight deck, right where our planes were being fueled and armed. The explosion, there are no words. A ball of fire, orange and black. It rolled across the deck like a living thing. Men were thrown into the air. Planes exploded. Fuel lines ruptured. The heat hit me like a wall, even though I was 200 feet away. The sound, it wasn't just loud. It was a pressure. It crushed your chest. The ship lurched, tilted to starboard. Metal was screaming. Men were screaming. "Secondary explosions!" someone yelled. Our own bombs were cooking off. The planes on the deck, they were loaded with bombs and torpedoes for the strike mission. Now they were exploding, one after another. Boom, boom, boom. I looked at the flight deck, and it was just gone. A crater. Fire everywhere, bodies everywhere. And then I saw the second kamikaze.
He'd been circling, waiting for chaos. And now he was diving, straight at us, straight at my gun. "Traverse right! Traverse right!" I'm screaming. The gun was jammed. A shell had misfired. Jimmy was trying to clear it. Tommy was frozen, just staring at the plane coming at us.
Doc grabbed Tommy and shook him. "Load! Load now!" The Zero was 300 yards out. I could see the bomb strapped under his fuselage. I could see the rising sun painted on the wings. Jimmy cleared the jam. "We're hot! We're hot!" 200 yards. I pulled the trigger. The gun roared back to life. 100 yards. The plane was hit. I saw pieces flying off. The wings shredded. But he kept coming. 50 yards. Brace! 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 The plane hit the water 20 feet from the ship. 20 feet. The explosion sent a column of water 100 feet in the air. Shrapnel peppered the hull. One piece, a chunk of metal the size of a baseball, hit the bulkhead next to my head. If he'd been 10 feet higher, we'd all be dead. The attack lasted 8 minutes. 8 minutes, but it felt like hours. When the guns finally stopped, the silence was worse than the noise. The Franklin was dying. The entire front half of the ship was on fire. Ammunition was still exploding. The hangar deck below was an inferno. Trapped men were screaming for help. The ship was listing 13 degrees. We were taking on water. 724 men died that day. More than 250 wounded. Doc Washington, he was trying to help pull wounded guys away from the flames. An explosion. He was just gone. 1 second he was there, the next, nothing. Tommy Wheeler, he made it. Jimmy Rodriguez, he made it. We stayed at our guns for 6 more hours, putting out fires, throwing unexploded bombs overboard. The Franklin didn't sink. Somehow, by some miracle, we kept her afloat. Limped back to Pearl Harbor at 4 knots, but she never fought again. Too damaged. They retired her after the war. When we finally docked, when I finally got off that ship, my hands wouldn't stop shaking for 3 days.
I got home in October 1945. Just turned 20 years old, but I felt ancient. The war was over. Sarah was waiting for me at the train station in Waterloo. When I saw her, I just broke down, right there on the platform, cried like a baby. We got married 2 weeks later, had 3 kids, grandkids, great-grandkids. I worked at my dad's hardware store for 43 years, lived a quiet life. Sarah passed in 2003, 22 years ago now. Sometimes I still reach for her in the morning, forget she's gone. But I never forgot that day, never forgot Doc, never forgot the 724 men who didn't make it off the Franklin, never forgot that sound, that screaming engine of a Zero coming down. For decades, I didn't talk about it. Sarah would ask, and I'd just change the subject. It was too much. The nightmares were bad enough without reliving it during the day. But now, I'm 101 years old. Most of the boys from the Franklin, they're gone. I'm one of the last ones left. And I realized, if I don't tell these stories, who will? Who's going to remember Doc Washington? Who's going to remember what we faced? We were just kids, 17, 18, 19 years old. But we did our duty. We stood our ground when hell itself was diving at us from the sky. We saved our ship. We saved each other. So this story, it's not really mine. It belongs to Doc, to the 724, to every sailor who stood on that deck and refused to run. They gave everything. The least I can do is make sure you remember them before I join them. Thank you for listening, for honoring their memory. If this story touched you, follow the channel, share it. Tell someone about the USS Franklin, about the men who fought kamikazes with nothing but courage and 40mm guns. And if you know a veteran, shake their hand, say thank you, because we didn't do it for medals. We did it for each other and for home. God bless America, And God bless the men of the Franklin